Welcome to Freema Audiobooks, the place where your thoughts begin to make sense, your emotions become clearer, and your inner world starts revealing the answers you've been searching for. If you are here today, it means there is a part of you that wants to grow, to understand yourself more deeply, and to move through life with greater awareness and control. Before we begin this journey together, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and leave a comment about what self-understanding means to you. Your support helps this message reach more people who are silently struggling with confusion, emotions, and unanswered questions within themselves. Now take a deep breath, relax your mind, and allow these words to guide you inward. There comes a moment in life when you realize that everything you have been searching for externally has always had a connection to something internal. Something deeper that quietly influences your decisions, your reactions, and your perception of the world around you. Many people spend years chasing clarity through achievements, relationships, or distractions, yet they never pause long enough to examine the patterns within their own mind. Emotional intelligence begins the moment you stop looking outward for answers and start observing yourself with honesty and curiosity. It is not about perfection, but about awareness. And awareness is where transformation begins. Understanding yourself is not something that happens instantly, because your thoughts and emotions are shaped by years of experiences, beliefs, and subconscious patterns that have been built over time. These patterns often operate without your awareness, guiding your reactions in ways that feel automatic and sometimes uncontrollable. When something triggers you emotionally, whether it is frustration, sadness, or anger, it is rarely about the moment itself, but about something deeper that has not yet been understood. Learning to recognize this connection is one of the first steps toward emotional intelligence. When you begin observing your emotions instead of reacting to them immediately, you start creating a small but powerful space between what you feel and what you do. In that space, you gain the ability to choose your response rather than being controlled by your impulses. This is not always easy, especially when emotions feel intense, but it is a skill that becomes stronger with practice. The more you pause, reflect, and observe, the more control you gain over your internal world. Self-awareness requires a level of honesty that many people avoid, because it asks you to confront parts of yourself that may be uncomfortable or difficult to accept. You may begin to notice habits, reactions, or thought patterns that do not align with who you want to be, and this realization can feel unsettling. However, discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong, but a sign that something is being revealed. Growth begins when you are willing to see yourself clearly, without judgment or denial. As you continue this journey, you will start to notice patterns in your behavior that repeat across different situations and relationships. You may realize that certain emotions appear in similar circumstances, or that you react in predictable ways when faced with stress or uncertainty. These patterns are not random, and they are not permanent, but they do require awareness before they can be changed. The more you understand these patterns, the more power you have to reshape them. It is important to understand that your emotions are not your enemies, even when they feel overwhelming or difficult to handle. Emotions are signals, and each one carries information about your needs, your expectations, and your perception of reality. When you ignore or suppress these signals, they do not disappear, but instead grow stronger or manifest in other ways. Learning to listen to your emotions without being controlled by them is a key part of emotional intelligence. There will be moments when you feel frustrated with yourself, especially when you notice patterns that you wish you could change immediately. It is important to be patient during these moments, because true self-understanding is a gradual process that unfolds over time. Every moment of awareness, no matter how small, is a step forward. The goal is not to become perfect, but to become more conscious of who you are and how you operate. As your awareness deepens, you begin to separate your identity from your emotions. realizing that you are not defined by what you feel in any given moment. You are not your anger, your fear, or your doubt, but the observer of those experiences. This shift in perspective gives you a sense of control and stability that was not there before. Instead of being carried away by your emotions, you learn to stand grounded within them. This is the beginning of emotional intelligence, the point where you start taking responsibility for your inner world instead of being controlled by it. It is a journey that requires consistency, honesty, and patience, but it is also one of the most rewarding journeys you can take. Because when you understand yourself, you begin to understand everything else in a new and more meaningful way. Asterisk, as you move beyond the first stage of awareness and begin to recognize your emotional patterns with greater clarity, you enter a phase where understanding alone is no longer enough, and where real growth begins to depend on your ability to actively manage what you feel in moments that challenge your patience, your mindset, and your sense of control. Because emotional intelligence is not simply about noticing your reactions after they happen, but about influencing them while they are happening, shaping your responses in real time instead of being carried away by impulses that often lead to outcomes you later question or regret. There are moments in life when emotions rise so quickly and so intensely that they seem to bypass your ability to think clearly, creating a sense of urgency that pushes you toward immediate action, even when that action may not align with your values or your long-term goals. And it is in these moments that emotional intelligence becomes a practice rather than a concept. Because learning to pause, even briefly, allows you to create a gap between stimulus and response. And within that gap exists your power to choose something different, something more intentional. Something that reflects who you are becoming, rather than who you have been conditioned to be. Managing your emotions does not mean suppressing them or pretending they do not exist. Because suppression often leads to accumulation. And accumulated emotions eventually find a way to surface in ways that are more intense and less controlled than if they had been acknowledged in the first place. Which is why true emotional intelligence involves allowing yourself to feel fully while also guiding how those feelings are expressed. Ensuring that your emotions serve as information rather than as forces that dictate your behavior without your consent. When you begin to approach your emotions with curiosity instead of resistance, you start to notice that each feeling carries a message, whether it is pointing towards something that matters to you, something that feels threatened, or something that needs attention. And by asking yourself questions such as why you feel a certain way, what triggered that emotion, and what outcome you truly want in that moment, you begin to transform emotional reactions into opportunities for insight, turning what once felt overwhelming into something that can be understood and managed with increasing confidence. Asterisk. There is a discipline required in emotional management that many people underestimate, because it is far easier to react instinctively than it is to respond thoughtfully, especially in situations where emotions are high and clarity feels distant. But discipline in this context does not mean rigidity or suppression. It means commitment to awareness, commitment to pause, and commitment to acting in alignment with your deeper values even when your immediate emotions are pulling you in a different direction. Over time, as you practice this process repeatedly across different situations, you begin to notice a shift in how you experience emotional intensity. Because what once felt overwhelming starts to feel manageable, and what once triggered automatic reactions begins to feel like a signal that you can interpret and respond to with greater control. And this shift is not about eliminating emotions, but about strengthening your ability to remain steady within them. Maintaining clarity even when your internal state is turbulent. One of the most powerful outcomes of learning to manage your emotions is the development of inner stability, a state where your sense of self is no longer easily shaken by external events, where criticism does not immediately lead to defensiveness, where setbacks do not instantly result in self-doubt, and where challenges are met with a level of calm that allows you to think clearly and act effectively, instead of reacting impulsively in ways that create additional difficulties. This stability does not come from avoiding difficult situations, but from facing them with awareness and practicing control in real time. Because every situation that tests your emotional response is also an opportunity to strengthen it. And each time you choose to pause instead of react, to reflect instead of escalate, and to respond instead of withdraw, you reinforce a pattern that gradually becomes more natural, more automatic, and more aligned with the person you are working to become. As your emotional intelligence grows, you begin to trust yourself in a way that feels different from external confidence, because it is not based on validation, approval, or success, but on the knowledge that no matter what you feel, you have the ability to handle it, to understand it, and to respond in a way that supports your growth rather than undermines it. And this trust becomes a foundation that allows you to navigate life with greater resilience, adaptability, and clarity. This stage of the journey is where emotional intelligence becomes something you live, rather than something you think about. Where your awareness translates into action, your understanding becomes behavior, and your growth becomes visible not only to you but also to those around you. Because the way you handle challenges, communicate in difficult moments, and maintain your composure begins to reflect a level of self-mastery that sets you apart and moves you closer to becoming the person you truly want to be. As you continue developing emotional intelligence, you begin to notice that your relationship with others is a direct reflection of your relationship with yourself, because the way you interpret words, respond to behavior, and handle conflict is deeply influenced by your internal awareness and emotional stability. When you lack self-understanding, you are more likely to misinterpret intentions, react defensively, and create unnecessary tension in situations that could have been handled calmly. However, when you understand your own emotional patterns, you begin to approach interactions with greater clarity and patience. This allows you to listen more deeply, not only to what is being said, but to what is being felt beneath the surface. As a result, your responses become more thoughtful rather than reactive. You begin to recognize that communication is not just about words, but about emotional exchange. This awareness helps you avoid misunderstandings that often damage relationships. It also allows you to remain grounded even when others are not. Over time, this creates stronger and more meaningful connections. And through these connections, you experience a deeper sense of understanding and mutual respect. Empathy becomes a natural extension of your self-awareness, because once you understand your own emotions, it becomes easier to recognize and relate to the emotions of others in a way that feels genuine rather than forced. Instead of judging someone's reaction, you begin to ask yourself what they might be experiencing internally. This shift in perspective changes the way you respond in conversations. You become less focused on proving a point and more focused on understanding. This creates a safe space where people feel heard and valued. When people feel understood, they are more open and less defensive. This leads to more honest and meaningful communication. You also begin to notice that empathy does not mean agreeing with everything someone says. It means acknowledging their emotions without losing your own perspective. This balance allows you to connect without compromising yourself, and it strengthens your ability to maintain healthy relationships. One of the most important aspects of emotional intelligence in relationships is the ability to manage conflict without allowing emotions to take control. Because conflict is not something that can be avoided entirely, but something that can be handled with awareness and intention. When emotions are unmanaged, conflict often escalates quickly and leads to words or actions that cannot be taken back. However, when you approach conflict with emotional intelligence, you create space for understanding rather than escalation. You learn to pause before responding, even when emotions are high. This pause allows you to choose your words more carefully. It also helps you stay focused on resolving the issue rather than winning the argument. Over time, you begin to see conflict as an opportunity for growth rather than something to fear. You realize that disagreements can lead to deeper understanding when handled correctly. This changes your approach entirely, and it allows you to navigate difficult conversations with confidence and calmness. As you deepen your understanding of emotional intelligence, you begin to recognize the importance of boundaries in maintaining healthy relationships. Because without boundaries, it becomes easy to lose yourself in the emotions, expectations, and demands of others. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away, but about protecting your energy and maintaining your sense of self. When you are clear about your limits, you are able to communicate them in a way that is respectful and firm. This prevents resentment from building over time. It also allows others to understand how to interact with you in a way that is healthy. Many people struggle with boundaries because they fear rejection or conflict. However, emotional intelligence teaches you that boundaries are necessary for long-term connection. They create clarity in relationships. They reduce misunderstandings. And they allow you to show up as your authentic self without feeling overwhelmed or compromised. Trust is another essential element that grows as you develop emotional intelligence, both in your relationship with yourself and in your relationship with others. Because trust is built through consistency, awareness, and intentional action rather than through words alone. When you manage your emotions effectively, people begin to see you as reliable and stable. They know that you will not react unpredictably or escalate situations unnecessarily. This creates a sense of safety in your interactions. At the same time, your trust in yourself also increases. You begin to rely on your ability to handle situations with clarity and control. This self-trust allows you to make decisions with confidence. It also reduces the need for external validation. Over time, this creates a strong foundation for both personal and interpersonal growth. And it allows you to move through life with a sense of assurance that is not easily shaken. Emotional intelligence also transforms the way you perceive other people's behavior. Because instead of taking everything personally, you begin to understand that most reactions are rooted in the other person's internal state rather than in something you have done. This realization reduces unnecessary emotional burden. It allows you to respond with understanding instead of defensiveness. You begin to see that people act based on their own experiences, fears, and perspectives. This awareness creates emotional distance where needed. It helps you avoid absorbing negativity that does not belong to you. At the same time, it increases your compassion. You become less reactive and more observant. This shift changes how you experience interactions, and it allows you to remain emotionally balanced even in challenging situations. As your emotional intelligence continues to grow, you begin to notice a shift in the type of relationships you attract and maintain, because you are no longer drawn to connections that thrive on drama, misunderstanding, or emotional instability, but instead seek relationships that are built on respect, clarity, and mutual growth. You become more selective with your energy. You value depth over surface-level interaction. This does not mean you isolate yourself. It means you choose quality over quantity. This shift creates more fulfilling connections. It also reduces emotional exhaustion. You begin to surround yourself with people who support your growth and who communicate in a way that aligns with your values. This creates an environment where emotional intelligence continues to develop naturally. At this stage, communication becomes one of your strongest tools, because you are no longer speaking from impulse, but from awareness, which allows your words to carry clarity, intention, and emotional balance in a way that influences how others receive and respond to you. You begin to express yourself more clearly. You avoid unnecessary conflict through thoughtful communication. You also become a better listener. This balance improves every interaction. People feel more comfortable communicating with you. Misunderstandings become less frequent, and conversations become more meaningful. This strengthens both personal and professional relationships, and it allows you to navigate complex situations with confidence. Ultimately, emotional intelligence is not just about understanding yourself or improving your relationships, but about creating a life that is aligned with who you truly are. Because when you are aware of your emotions, able to manage them, and capable of understanding others, you begin to experience life with a level of clarity and control that transforms how you think, act, and connect. You become more intentional in your choices. You react less and respond more. You experience less internal conflict and more inner peace. This transformation is gradual, but it is powerful, and it affects every area of your life. This journey of understanding yourself is ongoing, because growth does not have a final destination, but rather continues as long as you are willing to remain aware, reflective, and open to change. And each step you take toward greater emotional intelligence brings you closer to a version of yourself that is more grounded, more confident, and more capable of navigating life with clarity and purpose. You will face challenges. You will encounter moments of doubt, but you will also gain strength. You will develop resilience, and you will build a deeper connection with yourself. This connection becomes your foundation. It supports you in every situation, and it allows you to move forward with confidence. Thank you for being part of Audiobook. And remember, everything begins within you. Asterisk, if this audiobook inspired you in any way, don't forget to subscribe to Audiobook, like this video, and share it with someone who needs these words today. Leave a comment below and tell us which part connected with you the most, because your voice and support help this community continue to grow. Stay connected with Audiobook, where every lesson brings you closer to understanding yourself and transforming your life.